Bianca was born the first child and only daughter in a family of 4. But in her village, a girl's birth was never a cause for joy. Girls were seen as burdens, temporary members who would one day marry into another family. Boys, however, were considered the true heirs, the pride of their families, and were given every comfort. From the time Bianca could walk, she was put to work. While her 3 younger brothers spent their days lounging around, playing games or napping, she was tasked with heavy chores that seemed never-ending. Her days began at dawn when she'd go to fetch water from the stream, balancing the weight of the water pot on her head as she struggled back home. Next came gathering firewood in the dense forest, the branches scratching her arms and legs as she searched for pieces sturdy enough to cook the family's meals. Her mother and father didn't care that Bianca was young, or that the work left her exhausted. They piled on task after task. As the boys dozed in the shade, Bianca would be out in the fields with other village girls, working under the blistering sun to plant and weed crops. The boys were considered too important for such menial tasks, though none of them lifted a finger to help. When she returned home, drained and hungry, her mother would scold her if dinner wasn't prepared quickly enough. For the girls in the village, this was simply life. They worked tirelessly from morning to night, with no hope of a better future. Education was for boys alone, and skills training was unheard of for girls. While the boys were coddled and praised, the girls toiled in silence, knowing they'd one day be married off and expected to do the same for another family. But Bianca's life was even harder than most. Her father's disdain for her was as constant as the chores he assigned her. "Why couldn't you have been a boy?" he would mutter, looking at her as though she were a disappointment. Her mother was no better. She saw Bianca as a servant in her own home, someone who existed only to serve and never to be loved. Her 3 brothers, seeing the example set by their parents, began to treat her with the same disdain. They mocked her daily, sometimes pushing her as she carried heavy loads, watching in satisfaction as she stumbled or spilled her hard-gathered firewood. Every night, Bianca lay awake, her body aching from the day's work. She wondered why she had been born at all. She had no answers, only the bitterness of being treated as less than human by those who should have cared for her. She often asked herself whether her parents were truly her own or if, somehow, she'd been left here by mistake. One day, as she trudged back from the stream with a group of village girls, Bianca's life changed forever. They were carrying water in heavy pots on their heads, their shoulders and backs straining under the weight, when they saw an old woman struggling to lift a large bundle of firewood. She was hunched over, her body frail, her hands trembling as she tried to lift the load. The old woman looked at them with pleading eyes and asked for their help. Instead of helping, the other girls laughed at her. "What's the point of you gathering firewood if you can't carry it?" one of them sneered. They passed by her, shaking their heads and muttering under their breaths about how foolish she was to have attempted such a task. But Bianca couldn't ignore the woman's plight. She felt a wave of sympathy wash over her. Despite the exhaustion from her own work, she set her water pot down and went to the old woman. "Let me help you, Ma," she said softly. The old woman looked up at her with grateful eyes, and together they carried the firewood back to her small, weathered hut. Bianca helped her stack it by the entrance, and even arranged a small pile in the fire pit, ready to light so the woman could cook her meal. Just as Bianca was about to leave, the old woman reached out and gently placed her hands on Bianca's head. Her voice was kind yet powerful as she spoke. "Thank you, child. For your kindness I give you a blessing. One day, you will be more powerful and wealthy than anyone in this village can imagine. They may look down on you now, but one day they will look up to you." Then, the old woman handed Bianca a worn 1,000 naira note. Bianca tried to refuse, but the woman insisted. "Take it," she said. "This is not just money. It's the start of your journey. Use it wisely. Wherever you go, this small gift will grow into something great. But you must leave this place. Your destiny is too bright to be hidden in this village." Bianca took the note, feeling a strange warmth spread through her as the woman's words sank in. She thanked the old woman and headed home, her mind racing. That night, she lay awake, clutching the 1,000 naira note. She knew what she had to do. She couldn't stay here, wasting away under her family's cruelty and her village's backward beliefs. She had to leave and make her way in the world. At midnight, when the village was quiet and her family was fast asleep, Bianca gathered a few things, placed the 1,000 naira note securely in her pocket, and left her family's compound under the cover of darkness. She walked far, not knowing exactly where she was headed but determined to leave her village and find a new life. As Bianca left her village behind, she felt a mixture of fear and excitement. She had no clear destination, only the 1,000 naira given to her by the old woman and a determination to change her fate. For the first time, she was free from the burdens of her past, stepping into an uncertain future with nothing but hope and the old woman's blessing. After walking for hours, Bianca arrived at a village many miles away from her own. Tired and hungry, she searched for a place to rest and gather her thoughts. She spotted a small hut near the edge of the village and approached, hoping for a kind soul who might offer her shelter. An elderly widow named Mama Nkechi answered the door, her eyes widening with sympathy as she listened to Bianca's story. Mama Nkechi didn't have much, but she offered Bianca a place to stay, along with a few morsels of food to fill her empty stomach. Over the next few days, Mama Nkechi and Bianca grew close. The widow became a guiding figure, encouraging Bianca to use her 1,000 naira to start a small business. After some thought, Bianca decided to use the money to buy bananas in bulk, which she could sell in the village market. It was a modest start, but she was determined to make the most of the old woman's blessing. Bianca had no idea what the future held, but she knew she couldn't look back. The kindness of the elderly widow, Mama Nkechi, gave her the first feeling of warmth and belonging she'd felt in years. With her encouragement, Bianca used the 1,000 naira the old woman had given her as a seed for her new life. Each morning, Bianca woke before dawn, buying bananas from nearby farmers and carrying them to the bustling market. She hawked her goods with a determination that caught the attention of everyone around her. People were drawn to her earnestness and politeness, and soon she had loyal customers who came to buy only from her. Within a week, Bianca's business was thriving, and she'd made enough profit to rent a small stall in the market. Here she expanded her offerings, adding fresh fruits, vegetables, and small essentials. Mama Nkechi watched with pride as Bianca's business continued to grow. "You were born for great things, my child," she would say, patting her shoulder with a knowing smile. Bianca, encouraged by these words, worked even harder, reinvesting every profit back into the business. Within months, her simple stall became one of the most popular in the market. Bianca used her earnings to buy vibrant fabrics, selling them alongside her produce. Her reputation spread, and soon people from neighboring villages came to buy her goods. She hired 2 young women from the village to help run her stall, paying them fair wages and giving them the opportunity she herself had never been given back in her own village. In just over a year, Bianca had turned her 1,000 naira investment into a thriving enterprise. By the time she turned 16, she owned multiple stalls and had expanded her business to sell fabrics, wrappers, and ready-made clothes. Her success was unprecedented, especially for a young girl from humble beginnings. Bianca could hardly believe how far she'd come. She now had employees, a network of suppliers, and customers who admired her. She had, without a doubt, become a millionaire, just as the old woman had predicted. But even as her business empire continued to grow, Bianca couldn't forget her origins, or the girls still trapped in her village. Her thoughts often drifted back to the young girls working under the sun, toiling without hope or opportunity. One day, as she walked through her bustling shop, Bianca made a decision. She would return to her village, not to seek revenge, but to offer change and hope. She was no longer the young girl who had been shamed and mistreated. She was a woman of strength and success, and she wanted to use her position to uplift those who had been left behind. When she arrived back in her village, the reaction was immediate. People stared in shock, whispering among themselves. Bianca's family could barely believe their eyes. Her mother and father looked at her with wide-eyed disbelief, while her brothers, who had once mocked her, now stood in awe. Bianca walked through the village calmly, carrying herself with confidence and grace. She visited her childhood home, where her parents now stood, humbled before her. They tried to apologize, but Bianca simply held up her hand. "There is no need," she said softly. "I'm here to bring change, not resentment." Without another word, she went to the village center and addressed the women, young and old. She spoke of her journey, of the old woman's blessing, and of the determination that had fueled her success. She announced her plans to open a vocational training center for women and girls, offering them education and skill training in tailoring, crafts, and business. The village elders were resistant at first. "This is not our way," they murmured. But Bianca's success was undeniable, and soon even the most traditional voices grew silent, seeing the value in what she was offering. She began sponsoring young girls to attend school and organized programs to provide them with a basic education. Over time, Bianca's influence transformed the village. Women who had once only known hard labor now learned trades that allowed them to earn income and achieve independence. Some even started small businesses, inspired by Bianca's story. Slowly but surely, the rigid beliefs around gender began to fade. Men, seeing the value their wives and daughters could bring to the household, began supporting the new changes. Within a few years, Bianca's village was unrecognizable. Where there had once been only hardship and oppression, there was now opportunity and growth. Bianca's family, once scornful of her, became some of her biggest supporters, helping her in her work and encouraging other families to send their daughters to school. Bianca's story spread far beyond her village, reaching towns and cities that marveled at the young girl who had risen from nothing to become a symbol of resilience and change. She continued to expand her business, but her heart remained dedicated to uplifting others. Years later, standing in the village she had once fled, Bianca looked out over the vibrant community of empowered women and educated girls she had helped build. She had not only changed her own destiny but had rewritten the future for generations to come. The old woman's blessing had come true, not just in the wealth she had gained but in the strength and hope she had sown in others.